See, I think people who are from Slovenia who listen to this episode are going to be so unhappy about the frequency of us using the word Yugoslavia, because the last thing Slovenia want to be called is the ex-Yugoslavic Republic.
Well, it is an ex-Yugoslavic country.
It is, but they don't want it to be reminded. People don't want to hear it.
Well, I mean, certain people in Slovenia think that times were better under Yugoslavia, and I think those people are stupid. Sorry, I think those people are really stupid.
Hello, welcome to Comedy with an Accent podcast. I'm your Taiwanese comedian, Quan Wen. I interview comedians who perform English stand-up comedy but who are not native English speakers, or they can have a very distinct British regional accent. This podcast is all about comedy, about accent, about languages, and about the comedy technique. So stay tuned if you're interested. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Comedy with an Accent podcast. We've had massive issue changing the software, which is just another day to explain we're all going to be killed by AI. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Today, I'm going to welcome one of my best friends. I don't use the word lightly. Most of the light's not on. It's okay, we're not a visual podcast. So now,
I don't mind hearing that I'm Quan Wen's best friend twice, if you want to redo it.
you can hear the click and noises. This is our lovely technician / owner of the studio.
You have to restart that, because I want a clean version of you saying I'm your best friend.
Yeah. Are you happy with this?
Yeah.
Are you? Well, what does you assure me? Do you think it could be better?
Yeah, personally.
All right, what do you want to improve?
I feel like we need to move the camera over a bit because you're slightly off.
Okay.
Yeah, then do that.
If that's cool.
This is so polite Britishness.
I'm not going to question him. This is a photography studio.
No, you know what he said? This was the moment that was great, was he said, are you happy with this? And then you said, yeah, and then he went, are you sure?
People are just saying we're planting social media content. Yeah. Like we deliberately delay the start.
I'm just going to scoot the table just this way, just so there's less shadow on the background. 3, 2, 1...
Hi, I'm trying to pretend this is the first time doing it, but this is the second time. Welcome to Comedy with an Accent podcast. Today, I'm welcoming one of my best friends on the comedy circuit. And I do not use the word friend lightly because, I insist on calling a lot of my guests friendly colleagues. But this is a true good friend of mine, Philipp Kostelecky. A good friend of mine. I can't even pronounce his name correctly.
Not even the first.
Oops.
The first name you got wrong as well. It's always the second name people get wrong.
I always pronounce your name wrong. It's only because I'm doing the research.
And how did you pronounce it today?
Well, I didn't pronounce the C as Z. Yeah. I always call you Kostelecky because I thought CK in a more Germanic sense.
Yeah,
I forgot this is a Slavic name.
It is indeed. In Polish, it'd be spelled with SKI or SKY, which would sound more like ski.
Makes more sense, right?
It does. I don't know why it's CKY. I think it's like an Austrianized version or Germanic version.
Do you want to use your opening line when you do a club set? You are the Austrian /
Yeah, I'll do it. So, hello everybody. My name is Philip. It's nice to meet you. I'll adjust my accent.
Oh, well, no. Sorry. Alex, don't go. We're going to do this again. I know you hate this, but where does he come from, accent-wise?
We said Slavic, so that's...
Don't be influenced by that, purely based on the accent. What do you think?
Yeah, where do you think I'm from based off my accent and how you've heard me talk?
Have you lived in Canada or the US for a while?
North American, he's going. You're going for a general North American, I think is what you're saying?
Yeah, you don't sound like you're from there, but you might have lived there for some time.
Interesting, that's interesting. So where would you think I'm from then if I'm not from there?
Is he American?
Nah.
Nah?
No?
Something's off.
No.
What? What's not American?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you what it is.
This is not a neutral experiment right now because he heard it was Slavic, right?
Yeah.
And
But Slavic people can be American.
No, every time
that's the beauty of this country.
no, let's not go into it. We're not doing the Donald Trump versus Joe Biden thing. Every time I have a guest, it always end up being something that's not like a foreigner.
Yeah.
Once I had someone from Luxembourg, that really, really tricked him. I think he's still bitter inside.
I went to Central Europe, but that was as close as I got.
So if I'm not American there, then where do you think I'm from?
He's enjoying this way too much.
If you wouldn't have mentioned anything earlier and I just heard an accent, I would have thought you'd lived in Canada, but you maybe were born in... probably would have guessed Northern Europe.
Interesting. Yeah.
Do you say talk a boot? Why does he think you're Canadian? You need to think about this.
The reason I get Canadian a lot, because this is why I get Canadian, is because I sound American but not U.S. American, and people automatically go, well, if he's not U.S. American sounding, then he must be Canadian.
Right.
Canadian is just like the de facto non-U.S. American
Now, Alice
accent.
gave me the sign from his special experience. Could you just finish this bit? So could you do your opening line?
Yes, so I will do my opening joke with one audience member, which is that. So my name is Philip. I'll adjust my accent right at the start because you're all getting getting confused. So basically, I come from Austria, America, and Slovenia. So it's 3 countries, 3 fathers. That's how that one worked out.
Okay.
I also went to international school. It's kind of why I talk like this. And then for some reason, those cultures combined to make me look like a Republican senator's son.
You really did the whole thing. I was only asking for the first
I did the whole thing, but I still gotta laugh. I still gotta laugh, baby. Still gotta laugh. Yeah, partly American, but grew up in Europe mainly.
There's a very American trait of you. You're really good at hustling. British acts don't do that. They don't just go and ask all the time. Americans are really good at it.
Yeah.
As a result, there will be some dodgy, mediocre American comic that comes here suddenly doing the best gig.
Yeah.
So, because of our friendship and because you're really good at hustling, you've been asking me, when am I getting on your podcast? And this is not even a really big podcast. And I used to say, why does it bother you that I'm not asking you?
It was because it was called Comedy with an Accent, and I thought the premise of it was just non-British acts. And I thought, well, I have an accent. I mean, anybody has an accent relative
Don't
to
give
anything
me that
else.
crap. Like, I'm saying accent is people who get judged because of their accent. And
Yes.
you, without a very sensitive ear, you just sound American. At least is what I thought. We're not getting into this because I'm going to explain why I've changed my mind eventually. I'm inviting you. I'm so worried that you
The
will
reason,
not...
I think I know why you changed your mind. A lot of people canceled.
No, they don't even reply to me. It is so difficult.
A lot of people canceled. And then Kwan was like, all right,
You mean
fine.
on the whole list of people who didn't even read my message? Those right?
No, you know what? It was because you said no so strongly the first time I asked, and then it annoyed me. And then I just thought, like, why not? And then I just left it, you know?
Okay.
I just left it, let them come to you. And that's what happened. Eventually, a little Instagram message comes through.
Right.
Hey, Philip, with your fingers toed in together like this, like, oh, could you please come on my podcast? And I went, all right, Kwan, if
I
you
was
insist.
never that low status.
I know. I'm just
I'm going to explain why. Because my personal view on what I consider as accent and the premises of show has changed after interviewing 30 odd.
After interviewing all the comedians that could be on the show,
Like, I
you
will
then
make
got
one
rid of
exception.
any
No.
potential guests.
Okay, I'm not going to say I was wrong, but I'm understanding more. And I'm going to explain why. When I first started doing it, I felt disadvantaged as a performer.
Yeah.
Because when I go on stage, people never look at me in a neutral way.
Yeah.
I have to spend a good chunk of my time just to get them to calm down. This has been evidenced by some of my earlier guests because they tend to have a thicker accent when I first invite them, and they all say the same thing. So when I started first season, I kind of think of all my guests as victims.
Yeah.
I was victimizing my guests. I want my guests to come on and share their experience of being disadvantaged, of being a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And gradually, my view on accent grew more metaphorically.
Okay.
It's more on the perspective. I'm interested more in people's background, what they can share. And it's until, for example, Vidura. Vidura is a very international act. He does have an accent, but he can't really pin down where he's from.
100%.
And I realized Vidura offers a very international perspective some people cannot offer.
Yeah.
And I just interviewed Gino from Berlin 2 weeks ago, and he has lived in 5 to 7 different countries. Before I knew you, I just thought he's one of those Americans. Also, I have to say, you have a resting douchebag face.
What a mean thing to say to somebody.
You can only hear that from me when you're a good friend of mine.
That's true. Do you really think so?
Well, you don't smile. The first year when I knew you, yes.
I have a resting. Really? You think when I'm just stationary, I look like a douchebag?
I think you unluckily have an accidental similar face to a quintessential American douchebag.
Yeah, I'm aware.
But you're not.
I know.
You're not.
That's what everyone says to me. Everyone says that off of aesthetics alone. They all think I'm like this arrogant asshole.
An arrogant asshole who never had to do an hour of hard work in your life.
Yeah. I give off a privileged aura, for sure.
The whole point is, I just assumed you're one of those Americans that treat nationality as an ethnicity. I find it a bit funny when someone say to me, hey, I'm Taiwanese too. And I switch to Mandarin to talk to him. And he doesn't say a word. So I don't actually speak the language. And I just thought, how could you call yourself Taiwanese when you don't even speak the language? And I'm not asking you has to be fluent, but at least speak some. You know how people think of Italian Americans being the least Italian people and Irish American. So when you say you're Slovenian American, I just thought it's one of those beige Americans that have to find something to give it a little bit of label, a little bit of spice.
So, I mean, off of linguistic capabilities, that's certainly something I'm lacking when it comes to being able to fully identify as all three of them, because I think we've talked about this. So, like, I speak German and English. My German, it needs a bit of work. Like, I'm very comfortable talking with people, but there are significant gaps just when it comes to more mature dialogue, because I never went to high school in Austria. My father left when I was 9, so any sort of linguistic connection or to that cultural side was lost. Right now, I've actually started taking like a conversational German class once a week, just with this person, just to like keep it going. And then she like recommends books, and I'm trying to improve that side of my German. And then my Slovenian is something that I've always been ashamed that I never really spoke really well. And I've now started taking lessons for that as well.
Aber wie fließig ist dein Deutsch?
Also, wir können auf Deutsch sprechen, wenn du
Oh, that would be so snobbish. Well, you can't. My German is not
also
like...
kannst du ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen, oder nicht?
Ich habe in einem Jahr in Berlin gewohnt.
Yeah.
To give people the context, maybe explain. So what really changed my mind was I'm not a native English speaker, so I couldn't tell the very fine differences.
Yeah.
And when you explained to me you actually grew up in Slovenia, it's just that you went to an international school. I said, oh, so you actually live in Slovenia.
Yeah.
And that makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah,
Now,
for sure.
you
I
were-
didn't learn Slovenian, though, which is such a frustration of myself as a younger self. But I was incredibly...
We'll get to that because I have a lot of problem with Taiwanese who went to American school in Taipei as well. But we'll get to that
Fair
later.
enough.
So you were born in Austria.
Yes, I was born in Vienna.
When did you move to Slovenia?
I moved to Slovenia when I was like 4 or 5, so very young. And I lived there until I was about 17, so about like 12, 13 years I lived there. The reason I think, there's a lot of different reasons that I didn't pick up Slovenian. One of them was my own resistance towards it, or I wasn't even really, so my mom is Slovenian American. My grandparents both emigrated to the US after the Second World War, and they were both basically what you could call kind of like cultural or political refugees. They didn't agree with the Yugoslav government and what was happening. So they would disagree with it, and then they left, and they both met in the States. So my mom is Slovenian American. She was of second generation, born in America, but in a Slovenian household. So she grew up speaking Slovenian. That's her mother tongue, but was educated in America in English. So English.
Why did she move to Europe then?
She was always interested in Europe. I think she had like visited Yugoslavia. At the time it was Yugoslavia a lot. And she was doing like a German language course in Austria where she met her first husband. And
Why would she choose Austria to learn German? Just like the bit of flavor.
Well, you know what? You have like Anglophiles. There's some people who just like Austria. They like that it's not Germany. They like that there's a charm. Austria, it's a very charming country in some ways. And she met her first husband there, and then that kind of brought her to Europe and stuck her in Europe. And then after Yugoslavia broke apart, Slovenia became independent. There was some property that was returned to the family. My mother just decided, well, if there's property there, we might as well move there.
So you were in Slovenia until 13?
No, I was in Slovenia from 4 to 17.
4 to 17?
4, 5 to 17.
And then you came to the UK to study?
Then I came to the UK to study.
So you actually never lived in the US for a very long chunk of time?
No, but I would go there for the summers and spend summers with my grandparents.
Right, you always have the link, but the majority of time you grew up in Europe.
Yeah, Europe. And then most of my contemporaries, being in international school, most of them were European.
I don't remember whether we mentioned this, but your dad left when you were 9.
Yes, so my father left.
So your mom raised you and your sibling single-handedly. The question is, though, you say that Slovenia is her mother tongue. Is she more fluent in Slovenian English or both of them?
She's more fluent in English for sure.
And that's how she raised you, right? Because you talk to your mom mainly in English.
100% in English.
That's one of the reasons.
Only in like circumstances where we don't want to be understood, she'll switch to German.
But not Slovenian.
But not Slovenian. She speaks German my mother is like incredibly linguistically talented. She speaks English, German.
His mom's so cool.
Yeah, my mom is very cool. She speaks English, German, Slovenian, and then now French to a pretty high level.
Why did you have the discussion, Mom? Why don't you send me to a local school?
I think that was discussed. Potentially, but I think the reason she didn't speak to us in Slovenian growing up as well, I think, was because where we grew up in Austria was a really rural part of Austria. And this is what my mother says. I don't know how much of this is true or how much she felt this, because sometimes those aren't the same thing. But she had always felt that the rural area in which we lived was already quite discriminatory towards her being American, because there are some Austrians who feel like the Americans lost them the war, even though that's completely stupid, but whatever. She felt it was already annoying that we were speaking both English and German for the local people, that to add Slovenian on top of that, she felt might be a bit much. I wish I'd gone at least to Slovenian school for a few years just to get a basic knowledge, and then that would have just only improved by having friends and stuff like that. I was taught it. Man, I was like really unaware of how to learn, and in school I was very, very stupid. Not like stupid in the sense that I had no intelligence to me at all, but I just didn't understand. You memorize stuff or learn stuff or learning a language, I didn't really understand that.
But let's say if you live in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, I guess, you go around, but you only speak English, or did you speak rudimentary Slovenian?
I was able to speak a few words, or I'd be able to get through a few social interactions for sure, and I understood a decent amount. And so you can kind of like nod your head and go yes, and do that.
It reminds me of some of my friends in Berlin. I always think it's a little bit cheeky. His partner is French, so he doesn't need to pass like the German fluency test to stay there. Yeah. But I just thought after so many years, you still don't speak a fluent amount.
I'm embarrassed about that, and I was embarrassed about it towards the latter stages of living there. But then it was like this weird point where it's like, it's now harder to learn it. But what's weird is that now I've started taking these Slovenian lessons once a week. I just have like a private tutor. I'm finding that I actually understand what I'm being taught. Whereas when I was a kid, I had no clue. Sorry, are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, I'll beep it out. But
I had no clue what I was being taught. I was so confused by it all.
one thing I knew about the Yugoslavic, I'm not sure what it's Old Slavic, there is one form of plural for two, and then from
dvojina.
three onward, there's another one.
Yeah, so in
Jesus.
Slovenian, yeah, it's a lot, and then I'm learning that now. But so this is interesting. So yeah, it's called dvojina, which means dual, basically.
Yeah.
You have a different ending if the word is a singular, if it's dual, or if it's plural. So 3 or more. 3, 4, 5.
See, if I had Patreon, this bit will go into the little bit only for linguistic gig. My focus is mainly on your cultural perspective. Then I understood what Philipp has to offer is not very a clear literal accent. But he's an American that was born out of Europe, basically. And that's very interesting.
That's a really beautiful way to phrase it. I was an American born out of Europe.
Yeah, but it's not obvious. You really have to understand someone. You listen between the lines and have a deep, meaningful conversation with you to understand that, you get to understand both sides. My question to you is, where's home?
That's a really good question, actually. I'd say home has to be Slovenia, for sure. I feel weird saying that, though. And I've always felt, because of that linguistic barrier, I've always felt weird commenting on that. And that's one of the biggest ambitions, I think, that I've wanted to learn so much recently, is that I don't feel like I have a real cultural tether to anywhere. Like, a lot of people will be able to say, this is home, this is where they're from, this is that. And I've always been very envious of that. And it's something that I've discussed with my siblings, because we're all in the same position, basically. And that's something that's quite nice about the siblings that I have, is that we've all kind of dealt with this. Also, my grandmother was Slovenian, and she was a really predominant figure on the lower levels of the Slovenian independence movement. Like, she really campaigned for Slovenia's independence in the States.
So you're like a bit of Slovenian Gandhi family member?
In a sense, at very low levels. Very, very low levels. When Slovenia was vying for its independence, which was gonna be recognized no matter what because of its like kind of geopolitical history and its position. But she was going around the Slovenian community getting signatures, and she ended up giving a speech at the United Nations, basically asking for countries.
You see, I think people who are from Slovenia who listen to this episode are going to be so unhappy about the frequency of us using the word Yugoslavia, because the last thing Slovenia want to be called is the ex-Yugoslavic Republic.
Well, it is an ex-Yugoslavic country.
It is, but they don't want it to be reminded. People don't want to hear it.
Well, I mean, certain people in Slovenia think that times were better under Yugoslavia, and I think those people are stupid. Sorry, I think those people are really stupid. I talked to other Slovenians about this who lived during that time, and they were like, a pair of jeans costed like equivalent of like $100. Everything was so expensive. Fruit used to be like a birthday present.
Slovenian nationalism is a good topic, but given that only 2 million people, I'm just joking. Joking. In case I forget, I asked you a question, where's home? And you say that's a difficult question because you don't feel really particularly, what's the word? Tethered.
Tethered, yeah. So Slovenians wouldn't consider me to be Slovenian, although my classmates who grew up with me, they refer to me as Slovenian, which I was hanging out with one of them recently. I went to go to Vienna. Well, she said, you're Yugo too, which we talked about. Probably some of them wouldn't like.
Oh, you are Yugo.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Japanese
word.
Yeah.
But Austrians wouldn't consider me Austrian. And then when I meet American ones are weird because I lived in the UK. To Americans, I sound English, which I think is insane.
It's not. I will explain to you why, but I will let you continue.
But with some Americans think that, and then some other Americans talk to him and go like, what are you talking about? He's clearly like not English, but he's clearly way more North American sounding. But then what's weird about Americans is I didn't go to school there, but I know a lot of the cultural references because I watched a ton of the TV growing up. Because when we go visit my grandparents, we'd watch a lot of the TV there, and we had a lot of friends that were Americans. As far as like upbringing goes, I have a much more like connection to American upbringing.
And that's when I say I changed my mind totally. I'm so honored you agreed to come on the podcast, because I've realized that I was looking for people specific to a country, to a culture, and I completely forgot I'm an immigrant myself.
Yeah.
I'm not typical Taiwanese, for many Taiwanese myself.
Yeah.
Initially, my concern was I knew a comedian in Berlin called Anya, and she's from Slovenia. And she has
Anya Wood.
Yeah, she has a quintessential Slavic accent.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe it would be more polite to Slovenians if I invite her before you.
Yeah.
And now I don't really care, because I just thought, no, you have a very specific, only you, like maybe only a small amount of people can offer this angle, just because you're not tethered to a specific culture.
So I think a small amount can, but more than maybe you think, because like I was at a show recently, and it was the host was talking to them, where are you from? And she said, oh, I'm from Iraq. And they said, oh, where are you Iraqi from? Where did you grow up? She said, oh, you sound American. Where did you grow up? She was like, oh, I went to international school. And then she said some of the places she went to. And they said, oh, but so you've never actually lived in Iraq? And she said, no, I haven't actually. And they said, why do you say you're from there then? And then she was a bit like, well, what am I supposed to say when you ask me that question? question.
Yeah,
How am I supposed to
I
answer
didn't
that?
choose to live this
Exactly.
life. If you ask me, I got to give you a simple answer. I did, and then now you're questioning me. What are you offering me?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, it's also like it's inherently an answer that comes from like parents who moved or traveled or had jobs that moved them in various locations.
But that's why I finished my first season deliberately on Vidora's episode.
Yeah.
I actually recorded some other episode before Vidora's,
Yeah.
but I thought Vidora's episode was a good ending to show the evolution of my idea, understanding what
Yeah.
accent means, what nationality, what identity means, and it's
Yeah.
all very, very complex. So after all that, do you think you're more European or American? Does the question matter?
It is a good question. Do I think I'm more European or do I think I'm more
I
American?
have an easy way out. I always say you're closer to East Coast American.
I'd say, yeah, if I'm any American, I'm an East Coast American for sure. I think I have traits of both. I think I'm European American, which is as pretentious as it sounds.
Yeah.
Which I hate saying. I'd say I think there's a lot of things about me that are American for sure, but there's a lot of things about me that are European too. What's interesting is when I recorded my special, which you can buy online.
£8.
£8.
Good bargain. A very good show.
Thank you, Kwan.
But that would be it. I won't say anything more.
But like when I recorded that, it was interesting. Someone messaged me afterwards and they said, you're a really nice balance between an American confident act, but you still have that like European self-awareness and self-deprecation maybe of the UK. I wouldn't say that I come across like a traditional American would. I'd say probably in the way I carry myself, maybe a bit more European, but maybe in my mindset and my attitude perhaps is maybe more American. Like I like to think that I'm a positive person, well, especially when I play sports and stuff like that. Like I play basketball on the weekends and football as well. I'd like to bring
Scandalous.
I
Bring
know.
that nasty, dirty sport onto the European continent. Jesus.
Basketball's amazing, man. But like when I play that, I'm really like positive and I like to get in it right. And then my comedy is certainly more American in certain ways as well.
I've mentioned this in a previous episode before. You're never going to get one answer because whoever you ask, they will only notice the bit that's different from them.
Yes. Also only maybe the bits that they could recognize.
Yes, so Europeans or British will notice how American you are, whereas Americans will notice how un-American bits that you have. Because of today's recording, I listened to so much of your previous talk, your podcast, and I noticed one word. I never noticed before, I never paid that level of attention. You said, I'm not a high-status comedian.
When did I say that though?
On Comedy in a Nutshell. It's not about the...
Man, do you know this is...
No, I'm not going to the comedic philosophy discussion. It's phonetically, Americans would have pronounced, more likely to pronounce status. But you say
interesting. Oh, wow. That's insane that you went to that level. Status. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's because
and I noticed it because before I came to the UK, I always say status.
Status.
And now I feel awkward to open my mouth so wide, and I gradually turn. I would choose status for this one.
That's interesting. So that's the thing is also that has affected it a lot is that I've lived here for 8 years. I think if I had grown up in Slovenia and then went to America for university, I would have been like very American very quickly,
Yeah.
vernacular. Because when I was in Slovenia, I'd have much more American accent. There, anybody thought I was American. And then Americans would have thought I was American as well. They would have known where in America, but they would have known that I was American.
Yeah.
Versus now, it's a bit different living here for 8 years. But I'm also, like, as you're aware, I'm moving to the States in July. I know. Kwan is very upset. I will miss you dearly, though. I'm wondering when I move there if I will start to sound more American
You
again.
will. Like even a couple of
what's-
days in Taiwan, my accent fluctuates.
That happened to me as well when I went
The
to
Chinese
Australia.
accent, the Chinese
started sounding
accent,
Chinese
not
as
just
well.
the Chinese accent got stronger, but it also becomes more American again. Because everyone I
Yeah.
talk to, they will always give me a little bit frowning. I was like, why are you talking like this?
That's interesting. Thing is that the only reason I think that some of these like British remnants may remain is because I lived here during quite strong developmental years. So I'm 17, just about to turn 18. So 17, it'll be 17.
You spend your coming of age years in the
Yes.
United Kingdom.
Yes,
That's
so
what
it'll be
I'm-
17 to 26, which
Right.
is the age I'm now.
UK had you at your prime. We're gonna return the old saggy ones.
Yes.
I'm gonna say something I forgot to say, and I'll come back to this bit. So I want to say I applaud your determination to catch up on Slovenian. I think.
No, thank you.
I think that's very. I don't know. Maybe from my point of view, looking at where we have Taiwanese American diaspora. I'm not expecting perfection, but the fact that they want to have to
Yeah.
a little bit. Okay, let's move on from this. It's very heavy, emotional ridden identity talk. A simple question. You used to introduce yourself as Philipp Kostelecky.
Interesting.
When did you drop Carl and why?
This is such dedicated.
I majored
checks.
in journalism.
Did you?
Yes.
I could see that, dude. It's just funny. You know what? I don't know if you've ever seen this guy online. He does these interviews with rappers. I'm going to send you a clip of his because you are like that. What he does is he finds these insane facts about rappers that nobody knows, right? And he goes up to them and he goes, what about the, I don't know, he says, what about the Black Cauldron album? And then the person will be sitting there and they'll go, what? And then he'll be like, yeah, what about that? And they go, how the hell do you know about that? And the rappers are always like so grateful because this guy is so good at his journalism. And there was a guy, like they one time asked him a question about this rap name that he had. And he had that name for a week. There was 1 week where he went by that rap name and he found that information. And he was sitting there like, wow, dude, this is nuts. So that's what I feel like.
Well, you see, this is a bet because I was assuming there's a interesting reason behind it that may lead to a funny discussion.
Yeah. So I went by Philipp Kostelecky.
When I knew you in 18 or 19, you were still using it, and you were still using your really silly handle cheesecake PCK.
Yes.
And that PCK is the initial.
PCK, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to go by Philip CK, but no, I'm joking.
God, no.
I'm joking. I went by Carl because like growing up, that was my name. And I thought, I don't know, I had this idea of what like an entertainer was. And like this old, like you went by all three names and it was like cool. It was old fashioned or whatever like this. I don't know why. I just did it.
Who do you look up to? Like Sarah Jessica Parker? Why did you keep your middle name?
I don't know, dude. I just kept it.
Like your last name is Kostelecky. It's not Smith. Like it's
I know. I also like the way it goes together. Maybe I thought also, I don't know, man. I dropped it. I don't remember when I dropped it, but I was just like, oh, this is too much. And every person I talked to afterwards was like, yeah, that was the right move.
I think it was the right move. It makes you sound a bit pretentious.
It 100% did. Yeah. And I probably was a bit
Actually,
pretentious.
if you want to drop one, Carl Kostelecky is, according to Adam Bloom, is good when you have a long surname. You stick to a short first name.
Yeah, but I don't want to go by Carl.
That's old, right? Like
Yeah. I don't want to be Carl.
The international approach. You did mention on the other podcast what you like is the American style comedy. Just very easy talking, conversational, and make you feel like it's not scripted or staged. But you also quoted that you went to a show at the Edinburgh Festival of Fringe and they talk about something very, very specific to the UK or to their region. And you found it extremely isolated.
Yeah.
That was the word you used. So that tricked you to think that as a performer, you don't want your audience to think that way. And that's been a very strong belief you've had since.
Yes, 100%. So I've obviously listened to every podcast I've ever been on.
No, some of them were a bit shy. I just skipped them.
Yeah, that's fine.
One was like, I'm just
dude, that's years ago, dude. Man, that's when I started, like 2018, dude. Wow, that is nuts that you even found that. What was I saying is, so I like you said, I went to go see a show, and in general, I go to see shows with British comedians, and then you get it in the States as well, where they only use American references. I was just sitting there, and I was like, I actually have no clue what the show's about. I feel so isolated. It also happened where, like, I used to have housemates I lived with that were all British, and they would sometimes talk about a few British things, and I felt incredibly out of place, but they made, like, no efforts to explain what was happening, and I just thought, you're trying to get the audience to like you. And what you want is 100% of the people to find you funny. It's just never going to happen because people have different sensibilities or they're just not going to laugh loud or whatever. But everything you do can either increase or decrease the maximum number of people that will at least understand the joke. And then you can do extra bits to make it funny or more appealing. And I think if you go for international references, if you go for things that can be accessible, so like talking clearly, a lot of times the language can be a big thing. Obviously, at a certain point, you do have to use language or references that are a bit unique to add humor to it. But there are more general references that exist. You can choose movies that almost everybody's watched, like almost everybody's seen Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or The Avengers. And then you can go hyper-specific for a few jokes. But like, I just thought, purely from a marketing perspective as well, like the more international you are, the better. A big part of that as well is I do a lot more physicality in my act. And that is hugely accessibly international. I've done a few gigs recently where somebody came up to me afterwards on a few different occasions and they said, we thought you were the best. We liked you a lot because yours was so accessible. She was like, oh, I come from India. I didn't really get what everyone was talking about, but I understood what you were saying. Everyone can understand what you're saying. And so that's the thing is I try to do nothing that isolates it because also at the end of the day, I also want my mother to come and see the show. I want my family to come and see it. And even though some of the bits are a bit blue or they're a bit, maybe not their style.
I think a bit is a bit understatement.
Yeah. I'd say 50-50. I like to do a 50-50 balance of blue, but even within that, I like to keep it silly or a bit wacky. I want my friends who I grew up with to come and see that or like people who I knew. I just want everyone to be able to at least be able to understand it.
When I first saw Philip, I was like, this, as I say, he has a resting douchebag face. Without the AAA, we probably wouldn't have become friends because I would have mentally
Yeah, let's explain what AAA is. AAA is a show that runs in Edinburgh.
Yes, we did a show in Edinburgh together. I think I started seeing you in London on the comedy scene around 18.
Yeah.
And we did the Manchester Frog and Bucket together, remember?
I don't remember. I remember the show. Did I win at that one?
No, you didn't.
Okay, well then I don't remember that.
But you were keeping to yourself, but it came across arrogant.
Yeah.
And because
that's an issue that I had at one gig once. They messaged me after the gig. I asked about progressing to a bigger spot, and they said, yeah, one of the other actors said you came across really like cocky and arrogant. And I was sitting there like, I didn't even say anything to anybody. But I was like, I did my set, had an okay show. I didn't even think I was like that great.
You know, it's not just because you're tall and good looking. You also have a very good posture.
Oh, thank you.
The posture will come across, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I literally, so every comedian I've talked to has said that when they first met me, they thought I was annoying, arrogant, full of myself, cocky, like asshole. And there was some, like when I started in comedy.
You're the statistical anomaly because half of the time when we think of American actors like that, they tend to be like that. You are the big exception.
Oh, thank you.
What I was trying to say was, in 2018 and 19, I feel like you were trying to be someone you weren't. You
Probably
were trying
accurate.
to be cooler, you could be someone taken very seriously. And it's because of that, I thought you're one of those influencer comics.
Yeah, sure.
The people who just want to be noticed. It's all about the ego. I wasn't aware how much passion you have towards the art of comedy because you come across that you're one of those actors, someone who just want to be the fame and comedy was the easy way. So it was the initial impression. And the summer when we did AAA and the more you MC, the more you went big with and you became sillier. And we also had this conversation at some point. I remember.
I think it was you that pushed that out of me because I was talking about how I was hosting the show and I was trying to do material after I hosted and it was never working.
Was it me?
Yeah, I think it must have been you that said...
I didn't click. It was me.
Yeah. That I should do my material the way I host
But was it
shows.
me that said that?
I'm pretty sure it was you.
Really?
So that helped a lot. And then also watching Sebastian Maniscalco helped a lot. He was really good. He's super silly. I think that goofy and silly side was brought out a little bit when I started dating my ex because I was in a relationship and I was able to be myself more. And I think I'd always been that kind of kid growing up. I always wanted to do silly stuff. I think most of my life I've been wanting to be the person who I feel comfortable being now, which is somebody who does voices, who does like silly faces, who gets all like weird and stuff. But the surroundings that I grew up in didn't always allow that. Some of my friends in Slovenia, for sure, in international school, they were like cool with it. But, you know, I'd sometimes try it in front of my family and they weren't up for it. And then certainly the friends I had after university, I think were not always welcoming to that side of me. But then I had a girlfriend who welcomed that more. I then started hanging out with older friends of mine from my time in the UK. And then I started to realize, oh, that's who I want to be. I want to be a person who's relaxed and does whatever they want to do. And so that's the biggest indicator for me. Like if I'm on a date with somebody, if I'm not doing those bits or those characters, then I can tell, oh, I'm not comfortable with these people.
So I feel,
it doesn't mean all the time,
I feel
obviously.
it's that maturity of you as a person, of you as a performer.
That's why the first thing I do when I get on stage is always make fun of the way I look because I just want people to know that I'm aware how I come across. But after that's done, I just basically go into any bit. And even the sexual or maybe more offensive or darker bits that I do, there's always an element of silliness there. That it's like very clear.
This is only because we are not a video podcast. Otherwise, I would spend more time explaining his look. His look, it's like, in a way, Philip is someone's being objectified because a reviewer, a senior female reviewer, came to his show and then wrote a bit about how good looking he was. I thought that's actually quite unprofessional.
Yeah, I was surprised by that as well. I thought that was completely irrelevant.
Did you get the message? I want to quote what he said. I know it's not the exact phrasing, but...
What the reviewer said.
No. How you describe now the honest you, the version of you want to be on stage. You want to be that kid who is so mad at something so small. And the kid is so upset, but it's so cute and so funny because something...
Did I say that about myself?
Yeah. So in a way, that your emotion range on stage, you say you want to be... Well, it's funny.
Oh, yeah. No, this is what I was talking about. I think I was talking about like the different types of comedy that there are. And one of the ones that I noticed recently is that there's like a cuteness type of comedy. So like comedy that comes from someone being sweet or exposing themselves. That's the thing, is like whenever anybody is honest and truly who they are, it's automatically affable, it's attractive, it's interesting. And anything that has that quality can be funny as well. Whether that interest is from just it being like brutally honest, and that can be really funny, or just really grasping what's happening in society and pointing that out in a really funny way.
And that's a big change for you from what I see as a third person person objectively how you went from you want to be the cool guy to who you are, who you were. Just in case one of that, I'm gonna do this right now. I'm so sorry, Philip. So Philip went to Royal Holloway University, and he used to be I wouldn't even say DJ. He was a one-man team. You had a producer at some point.
I did, yeah.
Olivia, right? He was running the student radio called the Sunday Show, 103.2 FM. This
Sanity Radio.
I first have to condemn your first episode track list. I'm gonna go for it, okay? Philip had a section doing chat-up line to the female producer.
Okay.
And see how cringe they are. I'm gonna quote some of them.
Dude, you know what? Can I say?
Yeah.
That right now as a concept would be huge on TikTok.
I know.
Can you understand how forward thinking I would not?
Yes, okay.
So the context of it, let me context a little bit. I had a very good professional relationship with Olivia. This wasn't creepy at all.
Yeah.
And the point of this was I would find or make up chat-up lines because we were at university and people were trying to, find relationships. And the point of the section was that they were meant to be ridiculous, and she was totally cool with this. And I would say them to her.
You're so afraid of being cancelled because they really cringe. Right. Is it in that context? Is it good, well contextualized?
Yeah,
okay.
I can't remember.
It includes, are you Swedish? Because you are the sweetest girl. I lost my teddy bear. Will you sleep with me?
Dude, I do not remember this at all.
Is there a mirror in your pants? I could see myself in them.
Oh my God.
I have a pen. You have a phone number. Think of the possibilities. There's a good one here.
Some of these were taken from online, let me be very clear.
Yeah, I thought, because you couldn't have written so much, Chris. Is your name Ariel? Because we mermaid for each other.
Yeah, that's cute.
I thought, Ariel, you would be talking about the washing tablets.
Yeah. My God, I gotta get rid of these episodes.
Your track list of your very first episode.
Why are you doing this to me?
It's funny. You do
I was 18 when this happened.
It was a Sunday show, and you start with Ruby Tuesday from the Rolling Stone, which I accept.
It was a joke.
Yeah, but why
on
is
Ruby
it
Tuesday,
your
actually
obsession with Image Dragons?
Image Dragons?
Yeah.
Imagine Dragons.
Imagine Dragons.
At that time, I thought they were cool. They're awful.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like you.
At the time, they were popular, though.
Okay, I'm gonna be visualized. So on one of the podcasts, Philip.
Why are you doing this to me?
Said that his inspirational song is Hercules from the Disney.
Yeah,
I'll be there someday.
Dude, that I 100% stand by.
I can go the distance.
I stand by that 100%. I used to listen to that every day on my walk.
That
to do my
reminds
friend's
me
show.
of Helen Bauer's joke that she was watching a YouTube video with the bride walking down the aisle with the Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. Dude, I will stand by Hercules.
Hercules.
I used to listen to that when I went to go do my show in the summer in the Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
I listened to that every single day when I went to go do the show.
So it started with Ruby Tuesday, Rolling Stone, ended with 21 Guns, and then you say, it's a workout song just about whether you have guns. You were doing some really cringe.
Why are you doing this to me?
Jim, it's like you can go to the gym to pump, like Donald pumps. So this was young Philip's sense of humor.
Oh my God, this is so awful.
Before we run out of time, I have to play this.
What are you doing? What are you doing, dude? No, stop. I cannot listen to this, dude.
You can't listen to it.
I can't. I don't want. Why would you do this to me? I'm not listening to that. Whatever you have, I'm not listening to.
You're not listening to. Okay, so in this Sunday,
what did I say?
You did an offensive Spanish accent, called yourself Dr. Eduardo.
Okay, I would not consider it offensive if it's Spanish. I think Spanish is free game. They took over the world as well.
Let me explain. So I'm talking about maturity, and for me, one part of Philip being mature as a performer is he's not afraid of going silly. But he always had it in him. When he was hosting, maybe because he was hiding in a small booth and he got the protection.
Also, nobody cared what I was doing, so I could just do whatever I thought was funny?
No, because when you were doing it, you don't have to do it in front of someone else.
No, but also, I did material. Yeah, that's part of it, but also no one was there, right? No one checking it either.
Yes.
So I just did what I thought would be funny.
Yeah, but that has always been your true sense of humor.
Yeah.
But then you went into the hibernation period when you first started doing stand-up seriously in London.
Yeah, post-university. The university itself, towards the end, I had some personal issues and troubles that happened. And then after university as well, I was hanging out with a group of friends who I don't think were that great for me. And so that whole, right before the end of university, post-university period, I was not, happy. I was, not a happy individual. I was probably personally very depressed and unhappy with my life. But, had, some stuff going for me.
See, now why I warned you about Dr. Eduardo before we started recording right now. Because it would be too much to impose on on you.
Yes.
But for me, there's a whole point of me bringing this up.
Yeah.
'Cause
What happened? I forgot about Dr. Eduardo. I think he was a scientist who was a fly.
it was a fruit fly.
He was a fruit fly. And then there was a joke about how he could only get so far in his research because he's going to die in a few days.
Yeah, so he's like, I'm 1 year old basically because I was born yesterday. So there were a lot of smart jokes, silly jokes. It was silly, but it was smart, it was good. Accent was cringe, but all the creativity was there. But this Philip at 18, no, season 2, you were 19. I never knew this Philip when I first met you in 2018.
That's funny.
Do you see the point right now?
That's very good.
But that Philip now, 2023, 2024, you are back to this version.
Yeah.
More intelligent, more mature, but you are back to this space. You're not afraid of showing how silly you are.
This is an incredible analysis that I did not expect from this podcast. I thought this was going to be a whimsical podcast about
What do you mean the wizard?
I don't know, but this is incredible. Yeah, you're 100% accurate, and that's probably something I should be thinking about internally a little bit. But yeah, it's certainly true, and I'm very happy about that. I'm happy that I'm now.
It's not very easy to find this. Let's talk
It'll
about
all be gone by the time this is released.
Dr. Eduardo the Fruit Fly. I thought that's enough joke. And you top it up with Dr. Fruit Fly singing a song about biology to the tune of Under the Sea.
Oh yeah, what did I say? Biology, right? That was it.
Biology.
Yeah, so that whole episode was a biology show.
Yes.
There was a great segment about David Attenborough. Did you hear that part?
Can I play the biology song?
No. You can't.
You can't.
If you wrote down the lyrics, I'd sing it, but I would not play it now.
The lyrics are too smart for me as a non-biology major.
What were some of them? Do you remember any of
And
them?
you were so committed, you know, in the original Disney song, you have the main character singing and you have some side notes from someone else. You do both voices like, hey.
That is.
You see my point right now.
Yeah, I see your point.
When you're in uni, you are not afraid of going there.
Yeah. It talks a little bit about like what my life was like post-uni and who I was hanging out with and the things that happened. That's
And
interesting.
those, you got nominated for student radio. You didn't win, but you were runner-up.
I got a silver award for creativity, and I got silver. In the world of student radio, that's actually a huge deal. Like, I don't care about it now, but that was huge because also the people who won gold, the people who won bronze were all teams. I was the only individual in that ranking. Got it. I didn't expect it. I just got it by surprise.
You don't want to open a TikTok account for Dr. Eduardo the Fruit Fly. It's so funny.
I forgot about that,
Oh my
man.
God. And the way you did the Arnold Schwarzenegger accent was so offensive. So offensive.
I don't know if it's offensive. I'm partly Austrian.
Okay,
I
I
think I
looked up a lot about Phil. I may have overlooked something, but I think this is the right moment to come to my conclusion. The reason I end on this student radio show,
Yeah.
it was a good example of explaining where you are right now and why you are getting more and more successful every day because you earn every bit of it. It's very easy to be jealous of other people in comedy, and I'm not sure about you, but I hide a lot of people's activity.
I do as well.
I just can't bear to see them. The only person I will not hide is Philip, because whatever he achieves, I'm only happy for him.
Oh, that's
not
very
just
sweet.
because he's my friend, also because if he gets anything, I know he worked his ass off to get it.
Well, that's very sweet, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm glad other people seem to think I'm doing well. Internally, I always feel like I'm like pushing against a brick wall.
And the reason I end on this student radio show, if you imagine how much work without a team, he's not just playing music. This guy wrote sketches, different voices, and he researching puns and awkward chat out line. He was doing a full show that is the workload for 4 to 6 people, and he did it all on his own for 3 years. No wonder he didn't become a scientist, because he
Yeah.
didn't spend enough time in his major biology.
I got a first in the end. Did you believe that? I did all of this while studying. But how do you think all of these revelations link back to my accent or my culture? Do you think there's any connection?
I don't think it's from your accent, actually, no.
Yeah.
Your accent is the accent you draw on.
Maybe, yeah. I'd like to do
All this link back is you chose a lifestyle that's difficult, and you do have your family's blessing, but you have to work very hard to keep your dream alive. So I don't think the passion comes from your background, your accent, but on your way to your success, your accent is something you're very proud of.
Yeah, thank you for all this. It's really sweet. And the amount of research is incredible. I think what I've always felt maybe about myself as an individual, and probably what I would say to anybody who maybe, because feeling lost or feeling like you don't belong to any particular country is an experience that like a lot of international school kids will have, but also a lot of like first and second and third generation immigrants will have. I've always felt there are a lot of pillars that make up a person's identity, cultural, sexual, religious, whatever those ones are. And that sometimes you can feel like one of them is taken away because you don't belong to any culture. But what I've at least realized is that what happens is when that pillar is taken away, you have to fill it up with who you are as a person. And that can be actually really good. My mother once said this to me. She said, you're not American, you're not Slovenian, you're not European, you're not American. You are that, but you're different. And that's not a bad thing. And I think that was something that also really helped. It's just like a really positive way to think about it. Just because you're different doesn't mean it is bad. And I think that's applicable to anybody. And there was this incredible quote. Once you know who you really are, you can stand up to anything. Once you have an honest perception of who you are as a person, you can stand up for anything. And I think part of that is accepting that maybe, realizing what you're not going to be is also like a big thing. So I'd say with anybody who feels like, I'll probably get a lot of immigrants who listen to this, they're like, they go home, they're no longer Taiwanese or whatever they are, right? You're you. And that is your own experience. Once you accept that, that can be a huge comfortability. And maybe in this case, I accepted it through comedy, being like the silly little boy I've always been. But then I've also accepted that, I'm never going to be properly Slovenian, but I can at least try to connect with it more than I have. And I'm never going to be Austrian. I'm never going to be American, but that's fine. That's okay. It's different. That's not
beautiful.
A bad thing.
Part of it was too big for me to presume, so I will let you say it. But I think we should stop here.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a beautiful ending. Where can people find you? It's no longer Cheesecake
No
PCK.
longer Cheesecake PCK. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube at Phil Comedy. So that's PHIL comedy.
I expect this episode to be released late May to June. Anything to plug?
There'll hopefully be a London show happening. I'm going to have my last one, but I'll be moving to the States in July, and so I won't have anything major to plug unless you're a US listener. Buy my special. I'd really like that. It's cool. I worked really hard on it. I really like it. If you message me, I'll give you a little discount code. I've been doing that with people. No one's taken me up on the offer yet. People just buy it. But yeah, if you message me on Instagram,
I know, in the cost of living crisis, you're right.
But yeah, just follow me online. I do a lot of fun videos. I think I'm just having fun. I'm just trying to put stuff out there. And so if you like whatever, you see my clips and you like it, just give me a follow. It means a lot to me. I don't have an agent. I don't have a manager. I don't have any production company behind me. I just do all this stuff myself. It's tough. So every follow I get, it means way more to me than it does to these assholes with the huge following. You know what I mean? Also follow my good friend Conwen as well.
So it's going to be a great loss to the comedy circuit here, but we hope he will be back occasionally for some spots.
I am. I'll be back in December for sure.
That's our guest today, Philipp Kostelecky.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, see you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.